Hey, people, I'm going to get going on a 4th of July reading on the 3rd of July. I didn't end up doing a full moon reading, shame on me, but I did a bunch of other readings last month, so I guess we'll let it slide. I decided to opt for the pulled back hair version today rather than having the fan billowing my hair all about like I'm advertising some product. I don't know. I don't know why I guess shampoo, I was gonna say, I don't know why they have these women with their hair blowing all around to advertise products, but I guess if it was shampoo, that would probably be all right. So figure out what the hell we're doing here. That would probably be good. I'm gonna just pause to do that so you don't have to sit here watching me going, "Ugh." Okay. There we go. And I actually managed to do that without accidentally stopping the recording, which is something that really pisses me off when I do it. But I do it more times than I care to admit. Today we are rolling with Cthulhu's Vault. It's actually one of my favorite decks. Always into the kind of dark fantasy thing, Lovecraftian thing. First read Lovecraft when I was 14 years old, and I thought, hey, this stuff is great. But then, things happened in between and sort of didn't think about his stories for a while. And then my son's dad and we found the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. And so, yeah, then I ended up going, oh, yeah, let's get back into this. Oh, God. I thought I knew what I was doing here. I'm talking, and it's like trying to talk and chew gum. I can't do it. Um, hey, let's do a finding goals reading. Um, I've started taking this course with AutoCrit. It's called Full Throttle. I will put the AutoCrit link in the video description. Um, I tried to take it last year. It was called something else then, but it's the same course. The premise is that you will have the full draft of a story done in 30 days. Well, I dropped out like after the first few days. I just wasn't ready. My approach is different at this point rather than being like, oh God, this shows that I'm a bad writer who never knew what I was doing. No, it's a different approach. I use the analogy from the late John Bradshaw's book. Oh, I will put a link to it. The title has just gone out of my head, but he makes an analogy, body by Bondo, and Bondo is a material used for repairing car bodies. It's often used by people who don't have a lot of resources at their disposal. So, they're kind of going on I'll slap this together and hope that it holds. Well, that's what I had been doing, not only with my writing, but with my life as a whole. It was, especially in here, Body by Bondo, because I never really learned good techniques for coping with and managing stressful situations. So I was just throwing spaghetti at the wall and see if it stuck. And that's what I've been doing my entire life with everything. So this is basically just learning new skills and new approaches because the old ones really weren't working and they were really fucking stressful. So anyway, so why not? Let's take a look, kind of a mid-year look here, finding goals. Um, First card is where you're coming from, and it's the moon. Got this guy here. It's cultist. He's looking all sinister. So we'll start with him and the moon and our present position. And let's see, I think he was out of order. I don't know. I always look at the references because, in the case there's something I might be missing, I can look at it and do my visual interpretation. But sometimes I like to just, for when I'm doing these videos, let's streamline it. Let's pick out the things that stand out. The moon often represents fear and imagination. Hey, which is great, if you're with what I was just talking about, if you're a creator and so you're working from your imagination, I imagine. Let's see what I did there. That wasn't intentional. Anyway, and seems like a lot of creative people tend to have imposter syndrome coming at them hot and hard when they start getting into a project. I know I do, which is why I've kind of been abandoning projects right and left ever since, having to deal with my mother's death and having to deal with the possibility of, not the possibility, it's something that has to happen, selling her house and everything that came along with that. And my God, anyway, so there was no buffer. That imposter syndrome was going to get in there and just rip me to shreds, which it did. So, moon, fears and imagination. So, for me, it's no wonder that I'm coming from that position. And you're watching this right now, and maybe that's resonating with you. I do this kind of as a broad thing for anybody who's watching. It's like the energy, it's the collective, what the energy is saying about people with our propensities, by which I mean, in this case, creative souls, but it can apply to other areas of your life too. Um, I was always a very fearful person. Um, my God, when I was younger, my fears, they just sat in there and consume me, eat me alive. Um, tell you a little bit about my mother's side of the family, talking about implanting fear. My maternal grandmother and many of my mother's aunts were hyper religious, this kind of old time Baptist. Yeah, I was like, I was thinking baptism was a thing. Wait, that's not quite right. But Baptist religion, and they were very superstitious, um, and also very hung up about sex. For instance, animals, cats are bad because they go around tail in the air showing you their privates. So they're, I don't know, you looking at it, cats' privates that way. I think that's kind of a you problem, but um, so that's one aspect of it. And also, even to cover up the legs of a piano stool or a table. It's their legs, you're looking at legs. Oh boy. I I don't know what to tell you about that either. But then there was also kind of the spooky dark aspects of it. Like Oh, I don't know. They were just like always talking about death and stuff, and um, it it definitely did something to my mother. She passed her all of her fears on to me. Um, and I don't know, just I kind of run up against something and then my mind throws down a curtain. So we're going to move on with the reading here. The moon is an indicator of uncertainty. Well, boy, howdy, we are sure living in uncertain times. I'll tell you what. I've been on this planet for 61 years. I was a Cold War kid. I was always wondering when the fuck we were going to get blown up, and I said, well, hell, let's have another Coke and another beer. So there was that. It wasn't nowhere near as crazy as what it is now because that was Mad Men in one sense. It was more of a political sense. Now the madman is just, let me tell you what, it's like, yeah, Ronald Reagan had dementia. Everybody kind of was suspecting it, but he wasn't presenting as completely stone cold crazy, asking for arches of ridiculous proportions to be made in his honor. This is the fucking reincarnation of Emperor Commodus. I stand by that. I mean, whether literally or figuratively, I stand by it. Um, so, this is about removing the mental blocks, let the imagination flow, and don't let this fucking cultist stop you. All right, let's step forward. Finding goals. Your greatest strengths in the situation, the Three of Wands. Then we got this cultist. That's what I love about this deck. It's just full of these cultists, and they're kind of fun, and they might even inspire a story or two. Three of Wands. So he's hanging out in the swamp in New Orleans, doing whatever one does in swamps in New Orleans. The Three of Wands is a card of collaboration. Well, right now, the collaboration is between me, myself, and I for where I'm speaking. But if you are thinking of a literal collaboration with other people, this is an ostentatious sign for that, a good sign if I'm using that word and it doesn't mean what I think it means at the moment. I don't know. Um, so initiative, ambition, and drive. If you got those, take them. I guess there's some other guys behind him here. Three men. Well, I'm only really seeing this one. I guess the other two, they're standing there like in a circle doing their thing. They got their backs to him. Um, but yeah, so a collaboration, whether it's a collaboration between you, the universe, and your idea, or a collaboration with other people, it's an auspicious sign. There I go. That's what I was looking for. I was using ostentatious and didn't know what it didn't mean what I thought it meant. We're moving on to the weakness in this situation. And it comes up the King of Swords, which you might think, well, terrible old woman, that's a pretty powerful card. But hang on there. Um, I think we actually need to look at the shadow side of this card. to look into the weakness. I'll read the strengths first. And it's showing the white worm there. Um, or Taswaga. I probably mutilated that all over the place. I always think of Taswaga as kind of a toad. Maybe that's a toad. It looks initially like a worm. Um, there is a story that kind of falls into the Cthulhu mythos purview, the white worm. Um, check it out if that's your kind of thing. Dark fantasy, monsters, all that good stuff. So here he is. He's sitting in front of his castle. His mass and presence is very intimidating. Um, so it's kind of this thing of, sorry, I got bit by mosquitoes get in around the screens. They think I am tasty, and I hate them. But anyway, so he's there's something, whatever it is, that's sort of sitting there, just being all intimidating to you. And for me, that tends to be, I'm not that good of a writer. I suck. I'm weird. I've got crazy ideas. I'm not good looking. All that shit that just stops me from proceeding forward. Just being like, okay, yeah, so my ugly self and I are gonna write some fucking stories, eat my ass. Um, I gotta whip out the profanity sometimes. By the way, I mean, I guess I should have said this from the beginning. If profanity bothers you, this is not the right channel for you. Sorry. Um, I don't have a filter sometimes. All right, so the king can be seen as a wise judge, but I think considering everything, we're going to be like, yeah, this is that inner critic asshole presenting themselves as the wise judge. I'm just warning you not to do this. You're going to make a fool out of yourself. Well, so in this instance, we don't want to listen to that fucker. Um, because they may be even presenting as sensible and not as the stupid inner critic that, like for me, that's the one that I've named Discount Jillian Michaels for her body shaming rhetoric that she always goes into, no matter what the reason why I might be feeling bad about something. Like when I had the rejection of all the 18 drabbles that I sent in, and boy, that was like a stab through the heart. And um this idiot inner voice is just going off about, well, if you weren't so fat and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, stupid. Those people have no idea what I look like. Go to hell. My God. You get this, when you came up with a lot of shame and stuff, and if you were bullied and whatever, you probably got one of those inner voices. If you were abused, um, know that they are stupid. Don't forget that they are stupid. Just kind of look at what they say, and a lot of the time you can see it does not make any fucking sense whatsoever. It is just, my God, it's dumb. Um, So, the reverse on this card, the shadow of this card, is someone who uses words to manipulate and mental exhaustion. So they create mental exhaustion. Whether this is your own inner thing or you have some fucker in your life who is doing this to you, possibly in the name of it's for your own good, well, the response is the same. Fuck off. Go away. And realize them for what they are. it is their own fears. They are projecting them onto you. Whether, like I said, it's your inner critic, but inner critics kind of become their own entity when they project outward and, kind of mutate your fears into something that becomes that. So recognize it. Um, Current blocks in our situation. Knight of Cups, so we got this sinister looking guy hanging out. And let's see what he's bringing to the table. Knight of Cups. So presenting you, it says a new romance, but for me, what that's saying is distractions. Distractions here, distractions there, distractions everywhere to try and stop you from anything, working on anything but what you've set out to work on. This has been, for me, a really serious problem for the past year and a half, approximately. Again, it's a form of PTSD, a form of grief. And, you know, there's the advice to approach new situations with a sense of eagerness. Um, but I feel like that whole romance thing is a warning against, being led off by squirrels with shiny objects. One piece of advice that the instructors at AutoCrit tend to give is that, if you get a new idea, write it down and come back to it, while focusing on the project that you're trying to get done. What I've been finding is that I am having an easy time enough creating ideas galore. Most of them I'm never going to use. I really want to follow through because if I don't follow through on something, um, it's going to get to the point where I feel like I just can't. So I've just got to. So not going to chase any new romance. There's the shadow side of this card is a warning against a person who will not commit or reciprocate. So even though I don't do warnings about romance, if you have relationship questions on your mind, have been in wondering about whether to get in or stay in a relationship and you're having red flags like this person is, just standoffish with you, they're not committing or whatever, well, there's your sign. This person is actually a stumbling block, or at least a current problem in your life, and you need to reevaluate the situation. I don't do readings about romance. I don't like to do them. Most of the time, people have asked me for such readings, they're coming to me from a position of limerence, which is a position I understand all too well because, as I've said before, I have realized I have never, ever been in love. Never. I don't know what that is. There are people that I love deeply, but I've never been in love. I've got to go pause something. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. I always have to be very careful that I don't hit the stop recording button. It's too close to the pause button, and I forget what I'm doing. Anyway, I was speaking about limerence, and I kind of remember where I left off. Just about the fact that I've never been in love. I thought it was love. It was limerence. Limerence is it's obsessive. It's not good or healthy. There may be regard and respect at the basis, but it turns into something else anyway. I'm not going to completely go into all that, but what I was getting at was that when people are coming to me for love readings, Fact of the matter is, they're probably experiencing limerence. I don't want to do readings about that. I'd rather keep it on, other goals like creative goals, especially. I'm kind of trending towards that. So don't ask for a love reading from the terrible old woman unless you want the ugly truth. Because I can't pretty it up for you, and it probably, I don't know. I don't want to be a total pessimist and say everybody's just fucked just because I am. But in my experience, it ain't pretty. There's only been once when I could say to somebody, yeah, this person has good intentions. So I don't know. Just don't ask the terrible old woman for love readings. Ask about creative stuff. That I can do. Um, So here are some influences that are starting to come in, and we've got this evil watermelon here, the Seven of Cups. Seven of Cups is delusion. So talking about the delulu. Let's see here, page. That's Pentacles. And Seven of Cups. So I'm not talking here about letting your imagination run away with you as far as your story. You got some crazy imagination going on in your story. Power to you. This is magical thinking. And I'm like, well, what the hell else is new? I'm always dealing with magical thinking. When I, you know, am doing one of my recovery groups and, we do I often say with um, Eating Disorders Anonymous, I'll say in recover for disordered eating and disordered thinking. I'm mostly attending Eating Disorders Anonymous for the, body image issues that I'm making my physique, and the fact that so many people have been brainwashed by advertising and other things about what fat people are, and that we're all always, I've just got to reach over and get another forkful of this cake, that because I always keep a cake next to me 24/7. I'm always eating cake and washing it down with Mountain Dew, and none of that's true. My behavior around food is actually pretty normal because I've been practicing intuitive eating for 10 years now to get out of that whole diet mindset. One of my bigger problems, because my eating disorder can actually take, at this point, I have not purged in about 10 years, so that aspect seems to be pretty controlled. So it'll, kind of go between restriction and binging. Um, the the binging aspect is nowhere near what it used to be before I started addressing things. But what that really is, oh my God, I'm just out of control. No, your body is starving. It's a starvation response, and people, just they've restricted for so long that now they're going to eat an entire large pizza all by themselves. Um, Diet culture is bad. I'm not going to turn this into a whole lecture on diet culture. I can put some resources. Sometimes I say I'm going to put the resources and then I forget what the fuck I was talking about. It's not a sign of dementia. No, this is the way I've always been. In fact, I'm probably better now than I was when I was in my teens, 20s, and even 30s, because I've learned a few techniques since then. But If I forget, I'm sorry. But I'll try to remember. Put some resources in there that you can read about that because I want to proceed with the reading. I'm already 30 minutes in. This is probably going to end up being an hour-long video. For those of you who are big fans of having this curmudgeonly old broad tell it like it is. Well, you're lucky you get me for like 45 minutes an hour. If that isn't your thing, I really hope you found something else by now. Why are you still watching? I don't know. So this is the magical thinking, the Delulu. Um, and you got to watch out for that fucker. It's, getting you like into get rich quick schemes or something like that. If you're like me, you're vulnerable to that kind of thing. And no, that is not a tax on stupidity. It is a tax on desperation. And you're probably also dealing with a mindset that's an addictive personality like I have. And in my case, it felt like I was in control by spending money on things. Oh my God, some of the things I've spent money on. So be on the lookout for that. These get rich quick schemes, these scams. So, but just overall, we're looking at delusion and distraction. And this can also be the idea that if it doesn't happen right away, it's because you suck. That's not true. There's a lot of other factors. So watch out for scammers and your own delusion. Watch out. Um, so talents to work on and develop. The Empress. I like the when the Empress comes up. This card is telling me that basically I'm now the matriarch. I kind of like that she looks a bit like Princess Leia. I like that because Princess Leia was one of my early heroines. She was really about the first female character that was, just totally kick ass, that wasn't the damsel in distress, that was, I wanted to be her so much. Um, so the Empress, and this doesn't just apply to women. It's also the female aspect for men, the inner feminine, and that is not something to be like, hey, you throw like a girl. That's not what I'm talking about. And if you think it is, please find something to smack yourself with. 'Cause that's stupid. Um, so it's, the strong feminine. This is the matriarch. Um, and in my case, it has very personal meaning. Basically, I am now the matriarch of the family group since my mother has passed. Oh, great. I didn't want that responsibility, but I've got to be kind of my own mother, and I'm having to learn how to be a gentler mother to the wounded inner aspects. And if you look into the internal family systems, you can understand that a little bit better. Um, because previously, actually, my maternal aspect towards myself has been extremely abusive. And, some of the voices did come from my mother, but I'm starting to kind of learn where my mother was coming from and starting to understand things that I couldn't understand as a child. I mean, my mother just seemed perpetually disappointed in me. And, I admit that I was kind of a lot, but people didn't understand kids like me then. And not really that it's an excuse for the way we got treated. Our wiring is different. So, it's kind of about being that parent to yourself and also taking charge of your own life, taking leadership of your own life, not letting other people just move you like a pawn around the chessboard, tell you what to do. You got to get to know you and you've got to nurture yourself. So, yeah, be in charge. All right. So here are some things that may be moving into your life. For me, this hits because it looks like a prairie storm. The Ten of Swords is one of the fucking nastiest cards. And I almost feel like this is a card, here I'm doing my Independence Day reading. This is a card for our nation because of oh my God, don't get me into this fucking political discussion. I would go on and it would just get more and more devolved into insanity because I got a lot to say. Let's try to rein it in here, people. Uh, I don't know. I've got the feeling like anybody who's like really one of these hardcore MAGA types. Number one, I don't think they're going to be watching this channel, but number two, and they're sitting there and watching in horror, and it's kind of like a throwback to the satanic panic, and they're probably sitting here thinking that, I'm just preaching the word of the devil. Good. Let them. I'm happy. Um, Anyway, no, the Ten of Swords, it's a harsh, harsh card. It's probably about the harshest card in the deck, as far as I'm concerned. So you have got to be ready for this energy coming in. And I feel like it's a collective thing because the United States is a huge country, very powerful country. Of course, it's eroding its power from within with all the fucking bullshit, rotted brain decisions that are going on, and then all the kiss asses that are just sucking up and not having any spine. Um, leaves a bad taste in the mouth. Um, we're going to be weathering this shit for a while, folks. And I really am seeing this as just kind of the whole affordability thing. And if you're in the United States in particular, but like I said, the actions the United States government is taking affect the entire world, especially when you get fucking crack smoking ideas like, hey, let's go invade Iran. Iran has been a hostile foreign power for years. I'm not saying we was buddy buddy with them, but there is such a thing as diplomacy and to quote the late great Kenny Rogers, knowing when to hold 'em and knowing when to fold 'em. When you got a fucking gibbering lunatic at the helm, they just gonna crash your shit into the rocks. Or, maybe something in the Strait of Hormuz. Um, I think this is a worldwide thing, a political situation that's affecting all of us in one way or another. And in the US here, it's affecting affordability. We ain't out of the woods, people. We ain't even close to out of the woods. You know, Orange Sathawaga, he's got his toehold in in the ground there, and it would take a lot to shake him out. I'm not anticipating it happening anytime soon. You want more political tarot? I'm going to direct you to some people. We'll do that after. I think this, like I said, it's more collective than personal, this energy. Batten down the hatches is what I'm saying. Get ready for it. There's storm moving in. Um, and we're still weathering the storm as a whole. But do not let it shake you from your goals. Even if you get setbacks, that is not the time to quit. That's the time to recalibrate. Now, here's our final card, Wheel of Fortune. I've got to say it like that. Um, it's the evolution of your goal, what your goal is going to evolve into, what you will achieve. Um, Now, if you got a chance to go on Wheel of Fortune, I guess there's your sign. Go for it. Wheel of Fortune. Anyway, I've got kind of a silly energy going on today. The Wheel of Fortune is number 10, and we just had the 10 of Swords. Something with that. Well, the Wheel of Fortune, it spins around. Things do not stay static. Um, as it says here, the world is always turning. Life is constantly changing. Nothing is static. Don't give up hope, even though shit is going to be looking pretty hopeless for a while in a lot of ways, or just kind of plain crazy. And how are we going to recover from this? This has been, for me, about the most insane time we ever lived through. Certainly the most insane government in the United States that I have ever seen. I've seen them come and go. Republicans, Democrats. I've had, my issues with each and every president, and, but also with each of them, I was able to find maybe something positive. I've been through Reagan, been through both iterations of Bush. A lot of criticism there from me, but I never thought any of them were complete lunatics. I was like, well, boy, they got some ideas I just can't agree with, but oh boy. Anyway, if I drank, I would be drunk. I'm not drunk. This is me naturally. Um, so yes, don't give up on your goal, even if things are making it harder to get there. Do what you can to keep it in your sights. And, like I said, batten down the hatches and hold on. That's what this is saying. It's saying, hold on. We're not able to be in the territory of winning, increase, abundance, any of that right now. For most people, that is not happening. You got these, forces of evil becoming trillionaires, and that's what we're dealing with right now. And it looks like only the bad and the greedy are gonna win. And a lot of the time they win sooner, and it looks like they're the big winners because they just fucking don't give a fuck about who they run over and what they destroy. But let's not let it stop us from doing things that are going to make the world better in some way. And it doesn't need to be a great big, okay, I found a cure for cancer. Most of us are not going to do that. Through my stories, it's kind of that well, let's be honest, my target audience is me. Um, if somebody else happens to say, "Hey, this is cool. I want to jump on board." Well, come on in. Um, I've always had a real hard time with this concept of find your target audience because it's often looking at kind of what I feel are almost superficial aspects. Like, all right, what you're looking at here, um, a mature Caucasian woman who lives in a rural area and has um, some college education. I've got the you might as well wipe your ass with an associate's degree. I had several certifications. They've all lapsed because I'm not able to work in those fields anymore. But that's not really who I am. That is my race. That's my age range. That's what I did for a living. Um, for me, it's more like they always are like telling you, well, is your target audience males ages 18 to 32? I don't know. There might be some of those that are interested in what I write. For me, it's more like this shit is for the outcasts, man, because I've never been anything but. I have no idea what it's like to be in with the in crowd, to be admired, all the women want to be me and all the men want to do me. I got no fucking idea what that would be like. I I remember like in the early 80s, there was one time one of the magazines did this ridiculous poll, and Ozzy Osbourne was voted sexiest male rocker, and his response was, "I find the idea of people thinking I'm sexy fucking hilarious," which is basically what I would think of that idea if whenever anyone said that to me, I'm kind of like, and they have. I know you're looking, but they have. It has been done. And um, I was just my first thought is, what the fuck are you talking about? I I kind of don't even know what the fuck that even means, and what I do know of what it means, it's like it means nothing to me because I don't care about that shit. I really don't. So, yeah, so finding your target audience, I don't know what to tell you about that. My target audience is basically weirdos who have never really quite belonged anywhere, but are mostly harmless. So, that's probably you if you're still here. Yeah. If you're still here just because you want to make fun of somebody, then fuck you because you suck. But I don't think that's why you're still here. I think the people who are still here are people who are, interested in what somebody who's kind of off the beaten path has to say. Um, and, maybe you are interested in what I'm gleaning from the universe and seeing through these cards and all that. And, maybe you just like people who are kind of different. Who knows? All right. So that's my target audience. My target audience is people who like to do things a little different, who see the world a little different, who've got compassion in their hearts, And when it comes to what they read, they like to keep it weird because that's the only way to keep it. With that, I've been at this for almost an hour now. I the last thing I ate was before I went to bed at 5 this morning. God, I've got to get out of that pattern. I had a sandwich and some chips and little almond milk. That's likely what I'm gonna have for lunch. Oh my God. No, it sounds good. It's just that, I always like variety, but I'm also lazy. Anyway, despite the shit coming out of left field and all, you know, keep the faith in yourself and in those people who really do care about and support you. And yeah, I'll have some links in the description. My brain has fallen out. I probably ought to do that eating thing. So, um, love to y'all. Peace, and until next time.